So everyone likes to ask me, hey Mike, you're a tech reviewer, what is one piece of tech that everybody should have, but for some reason people just don't have it? And my answer is always robot mowers, weirdly enough. But most homeowners have a lawn, and they spend about 2 hours a week maintaining their lawn. Or if they don't do that, they spend about $1,000 a year, if not more, on somebody else to take care of their lawn. But robot mowers are quieter, they're more convenient, they're healthier for your grass, and they actually keep your grass looking even better by mowing much more frequently. But despite how good these have gotten over the years, most people don't have one. And for some reason, almost every robot mower video on the internet seems to be sponsored. This video is not sponsored, and no brands have any influence on what I say in this video. I tested a bunch of robot mowers in terms of their cut quality, maintenance, setup, volume while cutting, and importantly, their ability to run without getting stuck or lost and needing you to get hands-on with the mower and get it back on track. And what you see right here are 4 of my top robot mowers. So in this video, I want to compare these 4 and help you decide which is actually the right one for you. We have a bunch of categories to cover, but let's just start off by introducing the mowers with their respective prices. So in no particular order here, we first have the Mammotion Luba Mini all-wheel drive. This one ranges from $15.99 to $19.99, and it's the smaller sequel to the mower I used about a year ago and made a video about it. And a lot of people really like that mower because it's very hard to get stuck. It's like the all-wheel drive as you'd expect from the name, and it also does quite a good job of mowing. But one of my big complaints then was if it got stuck or the battery died, it was really heavy. So this one is a lot smaller, so if anything ever happens, it's a lot easier to move around, and even more importantly than that, it takes up less space in your yard. Then we have the Navimow i110H. Actually, the whole I series is kind of the same. The 110 versus 105 is basically the difference in what area it's able to mow, corresponding to the battery size it has on the inside. But this is actually made by Segway, like the same brand that makes like the mall cop scooter thing. They also make a bunch of like go-karts and scooters and e-bikes. But yeah, Navimow makes some lawnmowers, and it's actually really good. I made a video about this one as well, and this one was $999 up to $1,299, again, depending on which model you want, if you want the smaller or the larger area, if you want the shorter or the taller mowing one, and I'll talk about those variations later. And interestingly, this one also has a subscription option for $100 per month. Maybe if you want to try it for like 3 months in the summer, that might make sense. Otherwise, once you get to 10 months, like you're gonna spend more than you did if you just bought it. So I would just recommend buying it. Then we have the Terramow S1200. This ranges from $999 to $1199. We'll talk more about different variations of this later in the video. And of course, the absolute beast, the behemoth, the tank of lawnmowers. This is the Yarbo, which the price on this one is more confusing than ever. At the time of filming this video, well, actually yesterday, at the time of scripting this video, it ranged from $699 or $6,999 to $9,999, so $10,000, and that's if you're getting the full bundle. So Yarbo is a little bit different. Rather than just being a mower, it's like this little tank or larger-ish tank device. They call it the core, and then on the front you can put on these different attachments, and they're coming out with more all the time. But at least right now, there's a lawnmower one. So if you just want the core and the lawnmower, it's $7,000. If you want the full combo, $10,000. And with that, you're getting like a snow plow, a snow blower, a leaf blower, a lawnmower. It can basically do everything, every outdoor chore that you would want. It comes with a hitch to tow little lawn trailers. It could follow you around and act like a Bluetooth speaker. It really does it all, and they keep coming out with more things like a lawn trimmer, like a weed whacker essentially. But that price, like I said, so $7,000 to $10,000, but literally like 5 minutes ago before I turned on the camera, I saw some more tariff stuff going on, of course, and the price dropped by $2,000. So who knows? I'll have links down below to all of these if you guys want to see the latest prices. And I think they probably, I don't have affiliate links with all of them, but if there is an affiliate link, it may be an affiliate link down there. So it could help to support the channel and fund more research like this if you decide you want to buy one. It costs nothing to you, by the way, and it does support the channel. So next category, setting up these mowers. This is a big deal. Kind of a major question I asked myself in this category was which one would be best for my parents or my grandparents to set up on their own. Like, I'm a tech reviewer. I'm gonna be very comfortable doing a lot of the troubleshooting and more of the technical aspect here. But for somebody who's not really comfortable with that, let's go in order here. The easiest one by far is the Terramow. It comes in a small, lightweight box. All you do is take it out, you plug it in, or you plug the base in really, you roll the little mower onto its base, you download the app, and you just say go. you don't have to do anything else. It'll drive around and just kind of bop around the perimeter and find out and make its own map. It'll make a map of your yard just based on the cameras that it uses to navigate. You don't have any kind of RTK station. You don't have to drive it around and show it where to go or where not to go. It can see things and identify grass versus not grass. And it's really, really good at that. Even like dirt patches, yellow grass, different things like that, it knows what to mow and what not to mow. Then kind of tied in second place here, but slight variations. So the Mammotion can also do that. It can navigate itself and find your own map. I found that it doesn't do nearly as good a job as the Terramow at that, and I was a little bit frustrated. So instead I ended up using it and navigating with my phone, and you drive it like a little RC car along the perimeter, show it where everything is, and it creates a map like that. Unfortunately, I had to do this twice because halfway through the first map, I was like 20 minutes into this, it lost GPS signal and deleted the entire map. So I ended up spending about 45 minutes remapping the entire lawn. Once I had it, it was okay, but this one navigates not just with the cameras. Instead, this will use an RTK station and GPS. And the RTK station, you can either stick it in the ground on a little pole right next to the little base that the Luba Mini sits on, or you can have an extension cable and put it up on the side of your house, but you just need to make sure that it has a clear view of the sky so it can actually help your robot actually navigate. Then we have, like I said, kind of tied in second place here, the Navimow. Again, very easy to set up. You just open the box, you've got the little base that you take out, you set the mower on it, you download the app again. This one does not have any auto mapping, at least not that I saw, but you will use your phone to drive it like an RC car, like I mentioned with the Mammotion. But this one works incredibly well. The RTK station, again, just either sticks in the ground or up on your house. And this one does a far better job of not losing GPS signal. So you just map it once and you're pretty much good to go. You can also map areas that you don't want it to go. So like around maybe decorative trees or landscaping, they're called no-go zones. If you have different areas, so maybe you wanted to cross your driveway and mow a little area somewhere else, you can draw little paths where it's able to go, and you can do the same thing with Mammotion as well, and then it can have multiple areas you're able to map. And then we have the Yarbo, which is definitely the toughest to set up out of all of them. There is a lot of assembly. It's also a very heavy series of boxes. It comes in a lot of different boxes, and this one, you can control it with your phone with like an RC. You can also control it with an actual like Xbox controller to drive it around. But to map it, you'll be using your phone. You drive it around the perimeter, and just like the others, it'll get a map just fine. This one uses an RTK station, but this one, interestingly, needs to be plugged in through an Ethernet cable to your house. So I had to like run the cable along the side of my house into my garage, and then I was able to plug it into my router that way. So definitely very inconvenient that it has to be plugged in like that. As far as I saw, there wasn't a way to wirelessly set that up, but perhaps there will be an update in the future where that's the case. But again, this one's going to be a lot tougher to set up. There are a lot of parts you have to kind of install, and there are videos that help you do that, but it's going to take a couple hours to get this thing set up. Now, moving on to probably what you would consider to be the most important category. I'll argue another category is more important, but that is, of course, mow quality. So first of all, how do these robot mowers cut? Well, on the bottom, they all use the same mechanism. They have a little rotating disc with some razor blades on the outside. And these razor blades, essentially when it spins, if it hits an object, they'll kind of spin in automatically so you don't damage the blade, or at least not much. You don't break the entire blade. It's also very efficient, so it doesn't use as much battery power. And these are generally going to be better at cutting less grass at once. So a lot of people see robot mowers and they think the same as a gas mower. This is a very different style of mowing your grass. You want this to go out every day, maybe every other day, and it'll take off about 1/4 inch of grass at a time, which is, first of all, going to be better for your grass by not shocking it, but also, some people say, like, why don't I just mow once a week and cut a bunch at once? Well, these little blades are not really meant for that. They're more likely to get clogged from that, but mowing every other day, you're not gonna hear it, you're not even doing it, and ultimately, like I said, it is better for your grass. So I don't know why a lot of people get hung up on that, but that's really the best way to use these, and honestly, it's better than gas mowers for your grass. So how are these actually adjusted for height as far as mowing goes? The Yarbo goes from 1.2 inches up to 4 inches, and that's digitally controlled in the app. The Mammotion goes from 2.2 inches to 4 inches for the higher model, or you can buy a separate model, 2 different mowers. The other one's 0.8 inches, so incredibly low, up to 2.6 inches, again, controlled in the app. The Navimow has a little dial on the top. You might have seen that and wondered what that is. That goes from 2 to 3.6 inches. I usually mow my grass at like 2 3/4 or like 2.8 inches, something like that. So that works just fine for me. And then the Terramow, this one you can manage in the app, and it's in centimeters, but it's essentially 1 to 3 inches. And again, like I said, digitally controlled. So as far as the mow quality goes, fortunately, these all do a fantastic job, but the way your lawn looks at the end is going to be a little bit different. For the mowing test, let me show you a little montage right here as I explain what's going on. I had all of these mow a similarly sized patch and just see how well they did. You can see a lot of them go around the perimeter first, and then they'll either go diagonally or vertically, and these angles are adjustable in the app. I had all of them cut, so the grass was already at 2.9 inches. I had them take it down to 2.6 inches, which is a pretty reasonable amount to cut. And like I said, these all did a fantastic job. In the past, I actually had each of these mow my entire lawn several times. And I can say the main differences you're going to see are going to be in the lines on your grass, which some people care a lot about. So the Yarbo is going to have the most defined lines because it has those large tank-style tracks that are going to leave smaller lines in your grass. Now, you're going to see these are going to be nice and defined, and if that's what you're looking for, plus the wider mowing deck, the Yarbo is absolutely going to give you the best looking lines. The other 3 mowers have really small lines. They're not really going to be that pronounced. You're going to see them for sure, and you're going to know your grass is well maintained, but if you're used to the big 0-turn lines, you won't be seeing that on these mowers. But I will say, because they have smaller mowing decks than the Yarbo, they're going to be more formed to your lawn. So if you have smaller bumps, you're going to see those bumps a little bit more compared to the Yarbo. But like I said, they all do a fantastic job. So it's really kind of just a matter of preference for if you like those lines and if you want more of a flatter style grass, the Yarbo could do a better job there. As far as mowing along the edges, this is pretty important. So because the Yarbo is so big and uses those larger tank tracks, it can't get as close to some more complex edges of landscaping. So typically you'll leave like a 4 or 8 inch gap there. You have to go by with a weed whacker later. The Terramow does the best job of getting near the edges because it doesn't rely on a map that you made and then some margin of error with where that actually is. Every time it mows, it's using those cameras, it's looking for the edge, and it'll go right up to the edge. So it does a great job of that. The other two, the Segway, or the Navimow rather, and the Mammotion, they both do a really comfortable job, I would say, of getting near enough to the edges pretty reliably, even if there's complex terrain and landscaping. Now, as far as rain goes, the Terramow doesn't have any rain sensors. It'll just mow in the rain. It surprisingly does a pretty good job of that. It doesn't really get stuck, or I don't know, I was impressed. It did a good job even though it was raining. Then the other two, we've got the Mammotion and we have the Yarbo. Those both have rain sensors, so if it starts raining, they'll go back to their base. If it rains one day, you can go in the app and just, say, don't mow the day after it rains, or don't mow for 2 days after it rains, depending on where you are. It rains a lot where I am, so I just let it mow the next day. But if you park them in their little garage thing, so a lot of these have an optional cover, the Yarbo doesn't, but the others have an optional cover to protect the mower from sunlight and rain. But if you're covering the rain sensor, it won't know if it rained, and it's going to try to mow the next day, even if it rained overnight. And then, of course, we have the Navimow. This one doesn't have a rain sensor, but it interestingly uses the digital weather, so it'll know when it's raining, and again, you can decide if you want it to mow or not the day after it rains. As far as how long they take to mow, well, the Terramow takes about almost 2 days really to mow like 9,000 square feet. So it definitely takes its time going around there. You can change the settings on this a little bit to have it go slightly faster or slower. But from my experience, yeah, it's going to take about a day and a half to mow my entire yard. The Yarbo, on the other hand, is way faster. This will do the entire yard in like, I don't know, 2 hours or so. It seems like it's incredibly fast. And then the Mammotion and the Navimow can easily do the whole yard in like, I don't know, 7 hours. So that means it'll be done in a day, no problem. And every day it'll do the entire lawn without leaving any spots that weren't quite finished. Now that said, if it's mowing every day, excluding rain days, which can throw you off, you really won't notice one day to the next if it's like 1/8 of an inch longer because it didn't cut a certain area. As long as it always gets every area on average every other day, your lawn's gonna be fine. We'll talk about how much space they cover in a second. That's really interesting as a difference between these, but I wanna kind of dig in a little deeper into how autonomous they actually are. And this is, in my opinion, the most important category, way more important than mow quality or setup or anything else. This is on a daily basis, are these able to run without you going in and interfering them? Are they getting stuck? Are they getting lost? There is is a really wide variety here in how they perform. So these do all have cameras to do some object detection, so they should be avoiding obstacles. The Terramow and the Navimow, I would say, use their cameras by far the best to not get lost, and these two absolutely never ever get lost on my property. So they can navigate around, and they don't stop anywhere and lose signal. So that is absolutely fantastic. The Terramow is the simplest, just using its cameras, so as you'd expect, it always knows where it is, and even if it gets dark, it has a headlight on there, so it can always navigate back home. The Navimow always, for some reason, just has really good signal with the RTK station. I found that I had no issues with that, but the other two, my biggest complaint with them, the Yarbo and the Mammotion, both use GPS a lot, and for some reason, despite having easy visible access to the RTK station, despite being in a fairly open area, there's like a fence and my house and a little gap between them, or maybe 20 feet wide between them, and for some reason they lose GPS right there and they always stuck. Every day that they mow, they'll stop in that exact same spot and just not do anything. So I ended up cutting that spot out of my daily routine, which is annoying because that's an important part of my yard. It's access to another whole area, and neither of these are able to do that. So keep that in mind. If you have any like tall buildings and a fence or any kind of like channels that might be blocking GPS, the Mammotion and the Yarbo are very likely to struggle there and are very likely to just get lost and sit there and potentially drain their battery. So that, I think, is really, really important. Now, as far as terrain go, the Navimow and the Terramow both have two larger wheels that drive it and then one little caster. And as long as you don't have any potholes, these should be fine. I had a couple little spots that were either like a little ditch or like a drain pipe that just kind of lost its cap. And the caster would get stuck in there occasionally if it just happened to pass at the right angle, and both mowers were getting stuck in that same area. So really, that's kind of on me. I can't really blame the mowers for that. I just have to get a little cover, maybe some mesh or something on top of that, so that they don't get stuck. But the other two mowers will basically never get stuck. We've got all-wheel drive on the Mammotion and obviously tank tracks on the Yarbo, and both of them do a fantastic job. In fact, I even took the mower off of the Yarbo, just the core, drove it around my garden. It can drive over boards, it can drive over rocks, sticks, it can drive over piles of dirt. This thing is an absolute beast, and I would expect it to never get stuck in any kind of terrain. As far as the hills go, the Navimow and the Terramow, as you might expect, having just two wheels and a caster, are not able to handle the same slopes. The Yarbo is rated for 35 degrees or a 70% slope, and the Mammotion is rated even higher, probably because it has a shorter wheelbase and it won't stick out as far. It's rated for 38 degrees or an 80% slope. And even though I think that's kind of true, I would be really surprised if the Yarbo couldn't handle the same slope as the Mammotion. I wonder just maybe how they rated them might be slightly different. Both are absolute beasts for basically any slope that you have. Some of these mowers can mow at night. They have lights on the front, like for example, the Yarbo has some really bright lights. I wouldn't recommend mowing at night, but for the Yarbo, maybe you want to use it for leaf blowing or, just pulling around a trailer at night or just lighting up your workspace. That is kind of beneficial to have those lights on there. Now, as far as coverage goes, the Terramow and the Navimow are rated for about a quarter acre. You're getting about 0.4 acres on the Luba Mini. That's the 1500 version. And then you're getting apparently 6 acres on the Yarbo. It does mow a lot faster than the others with the larger mowing deck, but I think 6 acres is probably based on mowing like 1 to 2 acres a day and kind of rotating around, and then maybe you could get all 6 acres. I think realistically, this would probably do the best job with like maybe 2 to 3 acres. It could probably do pretty reliably by mowing like every 2 or 3 days on a cycle like that. Also, it's worth noting that you can get LTE on the Navimow and on the Yarbo. And as far as durability and maintenance go, they're all going to need to essentially replace the little razor blades on the bottom. It'll tell you in the app usually when the razor blades are up, but maybe once every 45 days or so, depending on the grass you're cutting, you'll go down there and they're super cheap, very easy to replace them, and it keeps your cuts going good. Otherwise, as far as maintenance go, there's not a whole lot you really have to do with these. I think the Yarbo doesn't have a cover, which is a little bit of a downside, so a little bit more prone to getting weathered from the elements, but it does also have tracks on the outside that I don't know. I suspect they would be the first things to require some maintenance and some replacement, just being that their tracks and everything else with tracks usually need some maintenance. Speaking of longevity though, one little side note I want to add here, the benefit of the Yarbo is that it is larger, so if this is driving anywhere near like your driveway or anywhere that people might be turning around, like in your grass, for example, the Yarbo is much more visible and hopefully much less likely to get run over. I did actually lose my original Mammotion Luba 2 by getting run over by a truck And yeah, so that was the end of that one. Now, getting into our next test, the volume while running, which is a weird test. You wouldn't think that the volume really matters with these. They're all significantly quieter than, say, a gas lawnmower, but I think you'll notice a major difference. Now, as you notice, the Yarbo makes kind of like a louder whining noise, and if you have your windows open, you can hear that throughout your house. It's not super loud, but it's something that if it bothers you and you notice that, then they may be a drawback for the Yarbo. The others are significantly quieter. The Terramow, the Navimow are essentially silent. Even the Mammotion is really, really quiet. You'll probably not even know that they're running. You just hear like the blades of grass breaking, essentially, just like a little clicking from that hitting there. Now, getting into some other features with these, they all kind of have like a little watchdog style mode, except for the Navimow. At least I didn't see that in Navimow yet. Maybe there's an update coming where it can do that. But essentially, if you're traveling and you're like, all right, I think, I want to check on the house. I want to see if like anyone broke into my back door, whatever, my shed, I don't know, something like that. You can drive your lawnmower over there on your phone, wherever you are in the world, and have the cameras on and see what's going on. And it's just kind of a nice peace of mind. Or maybe think about positive here. Maybe you just want to check up on your garden when you're away and see how your flowers are blooming or something like that. Another feature set, the Yarbo, obviously, as I said, can really do it all. So we are getting, in the future, some trimmer and edger attachments for the lawn mowing portion here, but it can also do a lot of other things. Like I said, I have a full video just on the Yarbo, and I really talked a lot about the snowblower, the leaf blower, so this can just autonomously go through a whole preset map and blow all the leaves on your property to one side or to certain perimeters. Like, it just does a really impressive job of basically anything it needs to do. It's also rated to tow up to 3,500 pounds. That's on flat ground. Friction's going to be your limitation here, but still, like a regular lawn tractor trailer, this can pull it. And so if you have firewood, if you have like lawn clippings, well, you wouldn't have lawn clippings, but if you have mulch maybe, you can do all of that with just by being towed with this thing. And it can follow you as well using the cameras, and you can shovel the mulch in, walk a little bit, it'll follow you. Really impressive. The Terramow, as well as all the others really, have spot mowing as well. So if there's like one area you want to cut a little shorter, I don't know, maybe you're making like an outdoor golf simulator, whatever. I don't know. If there's some reason you want to cut a certain area, you can do that on any of these. They also have buttons on the top. I almost never use the buttons on these mowers. Everything is really controlled in the app. So what is my recommendation here? Well, before getting to my recommendation, one thing that I don't have an answer to is it's worth considering which of these companies are going to last the longest. Because if these companies go out of business and you bought a mower, I don't know for certain if the mower is still going to work. And one thing I can say is that Segway owns Navimow, and they're the one that's probably been around the longest out of these, and maybe is the most likely to stay in business. But again, just something worth thinking about when looking at these mowers. As far as my actual recommendations for these mowers, well, it gets interesting here. My top recommendation, I would say for most people, is the Terramow. Super easy to set up, very, very reliable, never gets stuck, completely hands-off. It's also one of the most affordable models here, super easy to recommend. But unfortunately, it actually just went out of stock like while I was filming this video, and they're coming out with a new model, I think in the next couple weeks. If it's anything like the previous model, which it definitely will be, it should essentially be true everything I said in this video. It should be really good at mowing, it should be really good at not getting stuck, and everything like that. But in the time being, while that is sold out, and I'll have links just in case it comes back in stock, but while that is sold out for now, my next recommendation is the Navimow I series. Again, very affordable, very, very impressive on how well this cuts. It really doesn't get lost, it doesn't get stuck, very hands-off, and like I said, the app is reliable. Everything about it just works well. Like you plug it in, you use it, and it just works. And that's really what you want in a robot mower. For tougher terrain though, you can't really use the Terramow or the Navimow because they're not really able to go up the same hills. They might get stuck here and there. And so for this, tougher terrain in small yards, the Mammotion Luba Mini all-wheel drive definitely gets a job done as long as there is good GPS. Like I said, it does a good job cutting, it does a good job of everything, but for me, it gets stuck in that one spot where it loses GPS. That's my biggest complaint there. But for anyone with a larger yard, 2 to 5 acres of grass, or even honestly, just more than half an acre of grass, you really are going to want to get either multiple small mowers, or you'll want to get the Yarbo. The benefit of the Yarbo, of course, is that it works as a full-blown lawn tractor. You can do all different things, and I recommend just checking out that video next. It's an honest review, not sponsored or anything, and you can see my thoughts on using the Yarbo for the past couple months. I have to say, the Yarbo team, I saw them at CES last year. I only talked to them for like 2 or 3 minutes, but you can tell they're working a lot on innovating with this. They're coming out new stuff all the time. And of all these products, the Yarbo, I would say, has the biggest community on Reddit and on Twitter of people who are genuine fans, who are like coming up with their own designs, 3D printing things. So really cool community if you want to tinker with it and build out some cool stuff, maybe a different towing hitch, for example. A lot of cool stuff, like, you know, Bluetooth speaker mode, for example, and stuff like that. But let me know which of these you think is best in the comments down below. And like I said, if you're interested in checking out the price, or if you want to buy one and support the channel, I have affiliate links for some of them down below, some non-affiliate links. I'll just have those down below as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next video.